Fans cried over this heartbreaking news. It started like something out of a movie, only this time it wasn't a role. Reports began flooding social media late last night that Ben Shephard, one of ITV's most beloved presenters, had been taken into custody under deeply troubling circumstances, a story that sent shockwaves across the nation. At first, the details were painfully unclear, but soon eyewitness accounts began to emerge. Neighbors claimed they saw police vehicles outside Ben and Annie Shephard's home in London, their blue lights flashing against the quiet suburban street. According to early reports, officers were seen escorting the Tipping Point and This Morning host into a vehicle just after 11 p.m. Fans were stunned. How could it be that Ben Shephard, the face of kindness, calm professionalism, and warmth on morning television, suddenly found himself at the center of such turmoil? What was happening behind closed doors? And perhaps most hauntingly, how was Annie Shephard, his devoted wife of over 2 decades, coping with the collapse of the world they had so carefully built together? As the story broke, social media erupted. Twitter trended with the hashtag #StandByBen, while others demanded clarity before judgment. But amid the frenzy, one voice was conspicuously silent: Annie's. For hours, she said nothing. No statement, no post, not even a quiet reassurance to fans who knew her as the strong, private anchor of Ben's public life. Those close to her, however, revealed a different picture. Annie was devastated, blindsided by the events, but she was also composed. A source close to the family told reporters, "Annie's world has been turned upside down, but she's not one to react rashly. She's holding everything together for their boys." Ben and Annie, who married in 2004 after a long courtship that began during Ben's early days at GMTV, were always viewed as one of TV's most grounded couples. While Ben's charm and humor made him a fixture on British screens, Annie chose a quieter life, working behind the scenes as a businesswoman and mother. Their marriage was admired because it seemed so normal, so un-Hollywood, so British. But that image, as it turns out, was masking something much deeper. By mid-morning, ITV had no choice but to break its silence. A brief but carefully worded statement was released, and it immediately sent the media into overdrive. "We are aware of an incident involving one of our presenters. As this is an ongoing matter, we are cooperating with all relevant authorities. ITV remains committed to maintaining the highest standards of integrity and professionalism across all its productions." The statement didn't name Ben, but everyone knew. And it wasn't just the wording that caught attention, it was the timing. Insiders later revealed that ITV executives had been in emergency meetings since dawn, weighing the reputational fallout. What they feared most wasn't simply the headline, but the heartbreak of the man at the center of it. One producer who had worked closely with Ben on Tipping Point told the Mirror, "Ben's the last person you'd expect to see in this position. He's kind, calm, and endlessly professional. Something must have gone terribly wrong." But what exactly had gone wrong? As more details trickled out, the story took a darker turn. According to preliminary reports, police were called to the Shephard residence after neighbors reported a disturbance involving shouting and the sound of broken glass. By the time officers arrived, tensions had cooled, but damage, both emotional and physical, had already been done. Sources close to the family insist that no violence occurred, but that the argument stemmed from months of private strain, fueled by exhaustion, overwork, and the pressures of fame. Ben, they say, had been quietly battling something most of his fans never knew about, a serious health issue that had taken both a physical and emotional toll. An insider close to the couple confided, "Ben's been unwell for a while. He tried to keep working through it. That's just who he is. But when you combine that with sleepless nights, public pressure, and fear of letting people down, it builds." And that's when everything seemed to unravel. Annie's breaking point.
While Ben's public image was crafted around optimism and empathy, Annie's strength had always been quieter, but no less powerful. Friends say that Annie was deeply protective of Ben, often acting as his emotional anchor when the demands of television began to weigh on him. But this time, it wasn't just about reputation, it was about survival. According to a close friend, Annie has always stood by Ben, but she's also someone who believes in truth and accountability. This has shaken her, not because of what happened in one night, but because she knows how hard he's been struggling beneath the surface. That struggle, the one no one saw coming, was soon revealed to be far more serious than anyone imagined. Ben Shephard, according to reports confirmed later that week, had been diagnosed with a long-term stress-related heart condition nearly a year earlier. He had managed to hide it from the public eye, continuing his work on This Morning and Tipping Point with the same warmth and energy his audience adored. But behind the smiles and early call times, the toll was mounting. Annie knew. And now the world did too. The health battle no one knew about. As headlines shifted from arrest to health scare, public perception began to change. Friends from the industry, including co-hosts Kate Garraway and Kat Deely, privately rallied around Ben and Annie, calling the ordeal a wake-up call. In one particularly emotional moment, a longtime ITV colleague revealed, "Ben's been running on fumes for years. He's such a perfectionist. He never wants to let anyone down, but when you push that hard for that long, something eventually gives." Doctors, it was later reported, had advised Ben months earlier to take an extended break from television after recurring symptoms related to hypertension and cardiac stress. But Ben, ever the professional, had quietly refused. He felt responsible for his team, his audience, and his family. That sense of duty, though admirable, became his undoing. When the late-night argument happened, Annie's fear wasn't about the headlines. It was about losing him. The shouting wasn't anger. It was desperation. She had begged him to slow down, to rest, to step back before it was too late. That night, under unbearable pressure, things simply broke. In the days that followed, the Shephard's home remained surrounded by reporters. ITV suspended Ben's on-air appearances pending recovery and review. But behind the noise, something quieter and more powerful was happening. Annie became Ben's fiercest protector, ensuring his days were structured around recovery and family rather than television deadlines. ITV quietly extended his leave indefinitely, and in a rare move, executives publicly expressed their full support. "Ben is part of our family. He's always put others first. Now it's his turn to heal." After 6 long months, Ben Shephard finally reappeared, not in a studio, but in a heartfelt pre-recorded message aired at the end of This Morning. His voice was softer, his words slower, but his message was clear. "To everyone who's reached out, thank you. I've learned that strength isn't about carrying on no matter what. It's about knowing when to stop, when to breathe, and when to let love carry you through." Annie, seated beside him, smiled faintly, her eyes full of tears. That single appearance changed everything. Viewers flooded social media with messages of love, compassion, and relief. #WelcomeBackBen trended for 2 days straight. And in that moment, the man who once carried ITV's mornings became something more than a presenter. He became a symbol of humility, vulnerability, and grace. Ben Shephard's story, from crisis to confession, from silence to healing, is not just a tale about a TV star. It's about what happens when the human heart reaches its limit. It's about a man who gave everything to his career until his body and his marriage begged him to stop. It's about a woman, Annie, whose quiet strength saved him from himself. And it's about the courage to admit that sometimes even the strongest people break. So what do you think of Ben and Annie's journey? Do you believe fame makes it harder to show vulnerability, or does it make stories like these even more important to tell? Let's talk about it in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, because this story, one of love, loss, and redemption, is far from over. Stay kind, stay curious, and remember, even the brightest faces on our screens have storms they must face in silence.